Hello everyone, this is RNKU and I am currently pursuing my computer engineering degree from BTech in computer engineering degree from Jamia Millia Islamia, and today I'm going to present you this project that I made using a very exclusive graphics library called Raylib library. And this library, just I got to know about these winter vacations and I tried to learn most of it. So this is going to be my first project. Let me very clarify with you, this is not going to be a very professional project, I would say, because all the things that I put here are used a way so that I can understand this library and can understand the object-oriented programming using C++. So it's not going to be a very professional way of making the projects or anything, but I have tried my best so that I can understand this library and the features. So let me just show you what I made, then we'll go into the code and try to understand everything that I implemented here. Okay, let's begin. So here is a preview of my game which I actually made. So you can see these blue dots are basically the enemies, and using W and S I can control its Y directions, and using A and D I can control the forward and backward part. Alright, and using the E key I can just shoot these blurs. Whenever these blurs are going to shoot these enemies, they are going to they are going to get deleted, and the score which is you can see here will get increased like this. So it's a very basic arcade based game which I created, and not much. I've used a single sprite in this project for the rocket only. In further I'll add more sprites for the enemies and further more updates. So let's just see how it works. It's a very basic game which the scores increases when you shoot these enemies and all those things. See, you can shoot as much as blood you want, you can increase your score and all those things, right? So let's just jump through the codes and try to understand how it all works and what all the functions I use in the libraries that I use. So first of all, these are the libraries that I use in this vector. Is for the main library which I've used is the Raylib library. Of course, this is going to be very incredible because we are dealing with the Raylib based graphics. All right, and then we have used this basic C library stdlib, and then we used this cmath library for doing some basic mathematical functions, and then we use this vector library for using a dynamic memory. All right, so let's just see how it all these things. So first of all, I declared these global variables float enemy timer and int player score. Then we have just jump into this class. The first class is going to be the player class, that is the main player which we are main sprite of that rocket we are seeing in that game. This is going to be the class player which deals all the functions and the drawing of that sprite in our windows. So this is going to, in the public we have declared these float x and y, which are nothing but the position of our sprite in the window. All right, so this is going to be the position of the sprite in the window, and then comes to the speed. This speed is basically how this speed is going to be the factor to which how our sprite is going to move in the x and y direction. So it's going to decide the speed, that is the number of pixels it's going to go in our window. And then we are using this image function to declare a variable image, and then we are using texture 2d texture 2g 2d to declare a texture. Then we are using this float again to declare the width of that of our image, that is the texture, height of that texture, and the angle of that texture about the axis. It's a very it's a very optional part. You can directly go and use a load texture only, but I used, because initially I was planning to I was planning so that I was planning of something else, but then I came here making this game, so I just added this function and never deleted this. Then we are using rectangular functions for the source and rectangle function for the destination. Right now we inside the our class, the first function we are declaring is the void init. Void init is going to basically declare our sprite, that is it's going to show us how our sprite is going to load in the in our window. So the first we took the image, the source of image is taken using the load image function, and I just got this free png from the internet and I pasted there. Then I use the image resize function so that I can resize this 626 by 626 png into 64 by 64 png. And after resizing this image, I use the texture so that I can load this texture from the image, and then I unload this image so that I can free the memory. Then I declared it w as this is going to be a texture dot width is the width of that of our png, and h for texture width. Then I use this source structure so that I can declare everything like this. 0 0 is going to be the center of our sprite, w is going to be the width of our sprite, and h is going to be the height of the sprite. And this is going to be the destination, so that from 0 to 0 it's going to move to x, and x comma y, x comma y, and this is again width and height will remain constant. Now we are going to use the angle is of no use here, so I'll keep the angle 0 only. Next function is going to be the void function inside our class. So void function, here we are declaring the vector, the that is the position of our sprite, which is going to be the origin for it, and it's going to be width by 2 and height by 2. And now we w by 2 and height by 2, w is already texture dot width, and height is going to be the texture dot height. Okay, now we are using draw texture pro. Now here is the twist, like you can directly use a normal draw texture only, but as I already told you, I was planning something else initially, so I used the pro. Then my my mind got changed and I came here. So I use this draw texture. It's going to be a very complicated way of loading the texture. You need texture sources, and I just place all these things inside this, and this way we completed our draw function. Now comes to the update function, which is a very important function for this, where I'm going to initialize how our sprite is going to act when we press key and all those things inside our window. So the first key is going to be the W. As I press the as I hold the W key, it's going to increase or it's going to decrease its Y position, Y component, because we all know how our graph in a Raylib library. So let me just quickly share you how it looks so that we can just clearly understand how it's going to work. So suppose it's going to be our, so it's like this. All right, something like this. And if I explain you, this is going to be our origin, this is going to be our y-axis, and this is going to be our x-axis. So suppose I want to I want to make my object move down, move down, so I'll just increment my y. Right, for moving upward I'm going to decrement my y. For moving backward I'm going to decrement my x position of that sprite. And for moving it forward I'm going to use I'm going to I'm sorry for this, for moving backward I'm going to decrement my x, and for moving forward I'm going to increase my x. So this is a simple logic which we have used for this. That's why whenever I'm going, and the speed is just a constant where we are declaring for how many pixels is going to move by just holding this, so that I can understand. So whenever I want to move it upward. So I'm going to decrease the y-axis here using this speed variable. I'm going to is going to tell me the how amount of pixels going to move upwards. So we are using decrementing here. Similarly for the s, if I want to move it down, so I'm going to increase the y-axis. If I want to make this go back using the a key, it's going to use x, decrement the x-axis with the speed. And if I want to make the speed move forward, so I'm going to make this forward, that is in the right direction, so I'm going to increment the x-axis with the same constant speed. Okay, else if, and this was an optional function which I used here. So it was of none of the use, like I mean, I just used it so that I can just rotate the sprite in the left or right direction, because before this I was planning something else, but now I am planning something else. Okay, so now we are going to, I also declared these variables initially. Now let me just move on to another class we call the player class. Now this is going to be let's move into the bullet class. Now before we go there, I have already declared this player here. Now this is going to be the bullet class. Now bullet class is very important because here we are going to implement something we call major functions. Now let's go into the bullet class. So initially I have already used simple draw circle functions and all these stuff to declare the draw function. Then the gate is going to move in the x plus speed, is going to move in the x direction, and it's going to, they are going to be the speed. Alright, so we have created this class bullet. We are going to use this bullet class in overall in our whole program, so it's very important for us. Bullet, basically we have divided our game into simple components: the player component, then the bullet component, then comes to the enemy component, which is very similar to the player one, but just there are differences in its dimension and the way it's going to move. It's going to move opposite to our bullet, so of course it's going to be here our x will be in the way of decrement. Okay, then now it comes to a very important part. Since the amount of bullets is going to be a very much, I mean it's not going to be a single bullet here, so we are declaring a dynamically a vector here of the named bullets, and then we are declaring, and enemies are also going to be the multiple, so we are declaring here enemies in another dynamically array called a vector of enemy type in the enemies array, right? Now we are going to start by making these two very important functions. The first one is going to be the void fire bullet. The way it's going to fire the bullet is going to come over here. So inside the void fire bullet, what we are doing here is we are using initializing a position x of our single bullet, a position y of our single bullet, and then the speed of our single bullet. All right, and then comes the position. So we are declaring the bullet using the bullet class called b. The position of that b is going to be declared using this position x. The position of y will be declared according of that bullet is going to be declared in the y. The radius is going to be fixed, a constant of the 5 units, and the speed of this is going to be also given using the function. And then we are going to declare the move bullet. Now before, let me tell you what is this move bullet here. For this I need to come over again to our my bullet. So what I did in the bullet class is we are considering a flag called a move bullet, which initially was the false, and once this move bullet flag becomes true, it's going to move in the right side. So we are using this flag for just in the update function, so that we can move our bullets in the right direction, right? So we are initializing it with this true, so that at every time this function fire bullet will be called, our bullets will be pushed in the right direction, right? Then we are pushing this bullets inside our array. right? This is the array we have declared bullets, and we are pushing all these bullets inside this so that I can fill this dynamically inside this, so that there is no need of declaring a single bullet. It's going to automatically give us any amount of bullets we want, right? Similar function is going to be used for the enemy spawn. The only thing is we are not using here any function, is going to go automatic, so we are not going to use any flag here as we did in the bullet fire bullet. So in the enemy spawn, similar float position x position y in the speed, and then again pushback. We already declared enemies array as our vector dynamic array we called the enemy type. So this is nothing. I initially tried to make a bool collision function using it, then I just got my mind changed, so it's just some notes. Now we are going to enter into our main function, so initializing every constants here. So the player dot speed, that is the how much amount the pixels a player is going to move, is going to be declared here. So now we already declared, where our player is going to be positioned when we are going to call the draw function of the player. So let's just start a loop, and after that we are going to call this player.init function, which is going to draw our player, right? I mean, it's going to initialize our player, how it's going to look. So now we are going to start the loop, that is window should close, that is till the window is not closed, this loop will keep running. So before we are going to begin the drawing, we are going to initialize all those functions. So here comes a very twisted part through which I have created this enemy. We can directly call our enemy like in the way, but it's going to randomize, like I mean it's going to spawn all those enemy if I remove this thing at every frame of this. So it's going to get synchronized with our frame, but I don't want that thing to happen, so that we get the time so that we can kill the enemy. So what I did was I initialized this enemy timer somewhere in the starting of our code. Here, see, I initialized it with 0. Then inside the loop, I'm just increasing this enemy timer. If that enemy timer gets increased by 42, then I'm going to call this enemy spawn function. Inside the enemy spawn function, the x-axis is going to be 800, that is going to, it's going to spawn at the edge of our, that is at the utmost right side of our window. And but the y-axis is going to be a random number, that is the y-axis position will be randomized using this get random value from 0 to 800, so that it looks like the enemies are spawning from any of the axis of the y-axis, that is at any position. Their y position is randomized. Then we already initialize their speed is going to be a 2 very less speed, because we don't want that our player is not able to kill them. Then I again reset this enemy timer. Now every time this loop works, it's going to spawn the enemy in a way I want, not synchronized with the frames of the window. Now comes to the another part, that is the fire bullet function. It's going to, the bullet is going to be fired from the player position. So I initialized this position using the player position only, and I set the speed as the 30, and every time I press the key E, it's going to fire the bullet. Now here comes a very amazing part, that how I randomized and how I'm going to fire all those things inside the update function. This e.update is going to be called using this for loop, where I'm using this enemies array which I declared earlier, and you then calling the update function. So update function is getting called using till our enemies array is empty. That means since our enemies array is dynamic and it's storing that, it's storing that value again and again, so there is going to be the infinite amount of the bullets that are going to be fired at every time I press at infinite time. So the enemies are going to be infinite and not going to stop the loop. And similarly using the b.update, I'm also, but this time the fire bullet is called using the key E. Every time I press the key E, it's going to work b.update, and there's going to be the infinite number of bullets that is going to be fired here. Now in the begin drawing function, inside this portion we are going to clear the background. I'm taking simple black background, then I'm calling the player.draw, that is it's going to initialize our sprite here. and then we are calling this enemies the draw, initializing or drawing the enemies. But again, I'm going to go with this inside the loop because we are taking an array where all the enemies element are stored, so they are going to become the infinite again, and similar for the bullets also. Then comes to a very important part, so that how collision is going to work for both these things, where we are using this method, this algorithm which I created, a very basic, a very simple, a very simple for the killing logic for killing enemies and deleting all those. So we are not going to use the original sprites or original class, we are going to use the arrays which we declared. So we are going to use with this for every bullet, and for every inside this every bullet we are going to run another loop for every enemies till the size of that enemy array. Okay, inside that we are declaring, we what we want is, we want at every collision. So in the physics, let's understand this thing using the physics, right? So let me just quickly open my paint, and let's try to understand this using the paint. So suppose these are the two circles. Suppose if I want to see their collision, let's suppose this is going to be the radius of this, then this is going to be a radius of this, or you can, all right. And let's just okay, let me increase this thing, and then again we are going to consider the two circles here. Let's just consider this is to be the center. I mean, all right. So let's just suppose mm, this is to be its center, and this is to be its center. Okay, and this is to be its center, and this is to be its center, right? So let's suppose uh, if I want like I want to find the distance, I'm going to use a very basic coordinate formula. I'm going to find the distance between those centers, and for the collision, if the distance is going to be less than or equal to the sum of their radius, r1 plus r2, right, then the collision is going to happen. This is what I did here. I'm just going to use the very basic coordinate geometry formula here to calculate whether the collision just took place or not. So this is going to be, suppose, r1 for our enemy, and this is r2 for our bullet, and we are going to calculate this way the how our objects are going to, how our objects are getting colliding, the collision is going to happen here or not, right? So this is what I did. So I initialized this dx as the difference between their x-axis, and this y as the difference between their y-axis coordinates of the center. I just found this distance, and since I'm using any part, we are using this array, so I'm going to appoint the ij, so that we can just take the distance between every amount of the bullets and every amount of the enemies which are spawning there simultaneously. And then we are calculating this d as the square root. That's why I declared their math, that C math libraries, square root of this dx dot dx plus dy dot dy. It's a very simple mathematics formula. If you want further, you can ask. It's a very basic. Then I consider that condition I set for the collision here. Once this collision happens, we are just incrementing our score here. Then using this erase function, that is bullets dot begin plus I, and enemies erase enemies dot begin plus j, we are just deleting at every instant they are colliding. We are just, they are just removing those bullets and that enemy or object there, and then we are decrementing I negative, so that this loop does not go in the infinite way, so that our function or our program does not collide, and then we are breaking from the loop. That's simple. Then we are using this draw text function here to display the score over our display. It's going to be the position here, this is going to be the font size, this is going to be the white color. Then we are ending this drawing, and this way this whole code has been done in a way we want. And let's just again see in how it works. So here it comes, and so here is our game. I hope you guys can see this. There are further things which can be done over this game, like we can make this enemy and this sprite whenever they collide, our plane game gets reset, or the score gets reset, everything. And we can add, instead of these balls in the name of enemies, we can actually add some sprites. All those things will be done in our second version, which I'll be working over this. And anyway, you guys can help me out in making further improvements over this. All your things are in detail, so you can check out its source codes in my GitHub, which I have given in the link in the video only. Thanks for seeing this my project. Thanks a lot.